This is one of the most unsettling stories I've ever come across. And trust me, I've seen some weird stuff on the internet. But this is next level creepy. This is about a guy named Matthew Hardy, one of the UK's most notorious cyberstalkers. And when I say notorious, I mean this dude was relentless. We're talking years of psychological torment, dozens of victims, and a level of obsession that'll make your skin crawl. So, picture this. You're just an average person, living your life, maybe posting on social media, chatting with friends online. Then, out of nowhere, you start getting messages. Anonymous ones at first. Maybe they're weird but harmless. Then, they start getting more personal. Suddenly, they're talking about things you never shared publicly, things only your close friends and family would know. And before you even have time to process how unsettling that is, the messages get darker, more manipulative, more invasive. That's exactly what happened to dozens of people in the UK over the years. And behind it all, Matthew Hardy. Hardy was no ordinary cyberstalker. Oh no, this guy took online harassment to a whole new level. See, most stalkers fixate on one or two people. But Hardy? He had over 60 victims. That's right, 6 in a row. And the way he did it? It wasn't just sending creepy messages or making fake accounts. No, he was way more organized, way more dangerous than that. He'd create fake profiles, pretending to be someone's friend, or even pretending to be them. Imagine waking up one day to find out someone's been messaging your friends and family, pretending to be you, spreading lies, ruining your reputation, all while you have no idea it's happening. And Hardy didn't just stop at 1 or 2 fake accounts. This guy built entire networks of fake profiles to weave himself into people's lives. He wanted to be everywhere, all at once, and he wanted his victims to feel trapped. Now, if you're thinking, how does someone even get away with that? Well, here's the thing. He was smart about it. He didn't send outright threats. He never made it obvious enough for the police to track him down right away. He operated in that gray area, just enough to be creepy, just enough to mess with your head, but not enough to get caught. Let me tell you about one of the women he tormented. She started receiving messages from what she thought was an old friend. The conversation started normal, catching up, chatting about life. Then suddenly the tone shifted. The messages became intrusive. Personal details about her life started popping up, things she never shared online. And then, just as quickly as he entered her life, he disappeared, only for a different account to pop up with a new name, a new face, but the same chilling knowledge of her personal life. She changed her passwords, made her accounts private, blocked him, but it didn't matter. Hardy always found a way back in. He'd create new profiles, new identities, worm his way into her circle by pretending to be someone she knew. And when she finally thought she'd gotten rid of him, he turned his attention to her friends and family. This is what made him so dangerous. He didn't just stalk individuals, he stalked entire social circles. If you blocked him, he'd go after your best friend. If your best friend blocked him, he'd target your coworker. He created chaos, paranoia, and fear. Because no matter what people did, he always found a way back in. And this went on for years. Eventually, after enough victims came forward, the authorities started piecing things together. Hardy wasn't just some random guy sending messages, he was running a full-on psychological campaign of fear. And when the police finally caught up to him, they uncovered a shocking amount of evidence. Imagine dozens and dozens of fake profiles, all carefully crafted to manipulate, to deceive, to torment. And behind them? Just one man, sitting behind a screen, hiding in plain sight, getting his sick kicks out of ruining people's lives. Hardy was finally arrested and put on trial. The stories that came out were chilling. Women broke down in court describing how he'd stolen their identities, destroyed their relationships, and made them live in constant fear. Some victims even admitted they were scared to go online anymore, afraid he'd find them again. And here's the kicker. When Hardy was sentenced, the judge called his actions chilling and persistent, pointing out that he lived to cause fear. He thrived on it. It was his thing. Now, you might be wondering, how did he even get away with it for so long? Well, that's the scariest part. Cyberstalkers like Hardy don't need to be physically near you to control your life. They don't need to lurk outside your house or follow you down the street. All they need is a screen, an internet connection, and enough patience to slowly, methodically invade your world. Here is another story, and I gotta warn you, this one is rough. It's about a young woman named Gracie Spinks and how something that should have been stopped before it even began turned into something absolutely tragic. Gracie was just 23 years old. She worked as a lifeguard, a job that, most people think of as laid back. You sit in the sun, blow your whistle, make sure people don't drown. It's the kind of job where you expect to deal with the occasional drunk swimmer or maybe a rowdy group of kids, but nothing dangerous. At least, that's what you'd think. But for Gracie, danger came in the form of a man she used to work with. Someone who took an interest in her, the wrong kind of interest. Now this guy, we'll call him Adam, was a former colleague. He met Gracie at work, and from what I've gathered, it started like any other work friendship. Maybe some small talk by the pool, the kind of conversations you have to pass the time. But at some point, Adam decided that Gracie wasn't just a coworker. He decided she was something more, and it didn't matter if she agreed or not. It started off as just unwanted attention. The usual messages she didn't ask for, compliments that felt a little too personal, showing up where she was. At first, she probably just brushed it off. Most people do, right? You don't want to make a big deal out of it. You tell yourself, oh, he's just being friendly, or maybe he's just socially awkward. But at some point, Gracie realized this wasn't normal. This wasn't just a guy being a little too nice. This was a guy who wasn't taking no for an answer. And here's the thing about stalkers, they don't just stop. If you ignore them, they escalate. If you tell them off, they get angry. And if you try to get help, well, sometimes the help doesn't come fast enough. Gracie did what she was supposed to do. She reported him. She told people. She tried to get protection. But the system failed her. It failed her in the worst way possible. One morning she went out to visit her horse. Yeah, she had a horse. Riding was her escape, her safe place. But on that day, Adam was waiting for her, waiting with a knife. And before anyone could stop him, before anyone could save her, he killed her. Just like that. A bright young woman with her whole life ahead of her gone. And you know what the worst part is? He killed himself right after. No trial, no justice, no answers. Just 2 lives ended, and a whole lot of people left picking up the pieces. After her murder, people started speaking up. There were protests, petitions, people demanding that stalking victims get the protection they actually need. Because the truth is, this kind of thing happens way too often, and most of the time, the warning signs are all there. Gracie did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. So, this is a story that started with what seemed like a harmless connection on a running app and turned into a terrifying, drawn-out torment for a guy named Nick, who was a union official, Nick McGowan Lowe. Now, Nick was a regular guy, just doing his job and trying to live his life. He'd met Amanda Hennigan on a running app called Strava. In the beginning, things were pretty light and fun. They'd send each other daily flirtatious messages. It was all friendly banter and harmless fun. But then, one day, Nick got a proposition from Amanda that he just wasn't comfortable with. She wanted an affair, something outside of his marriage, and when Nick said no, that was when everything took a dark turn. After that rejection, Amanda didn't take no for an answer. Instead, she began a nearly 3-year-long campaign of harassment. Imagine this. Instead of just moving on, she started bombarding Nick with anonymous messages on every social media platform you can think of. These weren't just a few messages here and there. They were relentless, non-stop communications that left him constantly looking over his shoulder. Every time his phone buzzed or he logged onto his social media, there was a chance he'd see another message from her, a reminder that she just wouldn't let go. Nick's day-to-day life turned into a nightmare. No matter what he did, changing his contact info, blocking her accounts, trying to keep his distance, Amanda found a way to get back in touch. It got to the point where Nick was always on edge, living in fear for his safety and well-being. It wasn't just an annoyance, it was a serious, ongoing threat that affected every part of his life. Eventually, Nick had to take legal action because things had escalated way beyond what anyone should have to deal with. The courts eventually stepped in and found Amanda guilty of stalking and causing fear or alarm. As a result, she was hit with a strict 10-year non-harassment order, meaning she wasn't allowed anywhere near him or his family. Sheriff William Wood, who oversaw the case, didn't hold back. He admonished Amanda for her actions, but also expressed hope that she'd finally learned her lesson from all of this. This is the tragic story of Alice Ruggles, a 24-year-old graduate who lost her life in a way that no one should ever have to. Now, I first heard about Alice's story a few years back, and it hit me hard. Alice was young, bright, and full of dreams. She had just finished her studies and was starting to build her future. But her life took a dark turn because of one person, her ex-boyfriend, Tremont Harry Dillon. For months, Harry's behavior grew more and more disturbing. He was obsessed with Alice, and that obsession soon turned into something truly dangerous. Imagine being constantly watched, followed, and harassed by someone who just won't let go. That was Alice's reality. Harry would show up unannounced, send endless messages, and even follow her around. No matter where she went, he was there, making her feel like there was no escape. It wasn't just unwanted attention, it was a full-on invasion of her privacy and peace of mind. And over time, that obsession escalated until it became lethal. One day, after months of this stalking behavior, things reached a breaking point. In a moment that no one could have predicted, Harry murdered Alice. It was a shock to everyone who knew her, and it left a mark on the community that still hasn't fully healed. The horror of losing someone so young and full of potential in such a brutal way is something that words can hardly capture. Later on, justice did come, though it can never bring Alice back. Harry was sentenced to life imprisonment, a decision that was meant to reflect the gravity of his crimes. I've got a story that really shows just how serious stalking can be dangerous, and it's one that I think everyone should hear. This is a story of a young athlete named Sabrina Sinha, a rising star in British athletics back in 2016. Now, Sabrina was riding high after winning big at the under-18 European Championship. She was in her final year of sixth form, a time when most kids are dreaming big about the future, planning for university, and thinking about all the possibilities. For her, that win was the peak of her youthful promise, a moment that should have been all celebrations and high hopes. But here's where things take a dark turn. Out of nowhere, Sabrina's online life became the target of a relentless stalker. What started off as a few unwanted messages quickly escalated into something truly terrifying. This guy wasn't just sending compliments or the occasional creepy comment. No, he began bombarding her with death threats, and even rape threats. I mean, think about that for a minute. Here's a kid who had just tasted success, and suddenly her triumph turned into a nightmare because some obsessed stranger decided to make her life hell. The messages were more than just words on a screen. They were calculated, cruel, and designed to make her feel like she was under constant siege. And if you imagine being in her shoes, having just experienced the thrill of victory only to find yourself hounded by these threats, it's hard not to feel the intense fear and isolation that came with it. Sabrina, who once radiated confidence and excitement for her future, found herself overwhelmed by anxiety. The harassment wasn't just online, it seeped into every part of her life. When she got to university, she became incredibly withdrawn, always on edge, and living in the constant fear that the next horrifying message might be just around the corner. Now, here's a bit of a silver lining in this dark tale. The stalker eventually got caught. Authorities tracked him down, and he was later sentenced to 14 years in prison for cyberstalking multiple women. It was a legal victory, a way of saying enough is enough. But let me tell you, no amount of jail time can erase the deep emotional scars left on Sabrina. That trauma had a lasting impact. Even though her love for running never truly faded, the constant fear and anxiety forced her to step back from competitive athletics. Instead of racing on the track in the bright spotlight, she started running in a quieter, more private way, trying to leave those dark memories behind with each step. And today, Sabrina isn't just a former athlete. She's become a vocal advocate against the kind of harassment she endured. She openly criticizes the systems that leave young female athletes so vulnerable, pushing for better protection and support for others who might find themselves in similar situations. This is a story of someone who wished to remain anonymous, but still wants to share her experience. Sometimes the scariest things don't happen in dark alleys or abandoned buildings. They happen in the middle of your everyday life, when you least expect them. So, this all happened a couple of years ago. She had just moved into a new apartment, a small but decent place. Nothing fancy, just a quiet little spot in a decent neighborhood. It was one of those areas where people kind of kept to themselves. The kind of place where you nod at your neighbors, but don't really talk much beyond that. It felt safe, and she liked that. Now, most times she works late. Long hours, unpredictable shifts. So, a lot of the time she'd get home too tired to cook, so she'd just order food. You know how it is. Just eat, Uber Eats, whatever's quick and easy. At first, it was just normal. She'd order, the driver would drop the food off, and that was it. But then, this one driver started showing up a lot. Like, a lot. His name was Zaid Mohammed. She remembers seeing it pop up in the app the first few times and thinking, same guy again? Weird, but okay. She figured maybe he just worked the late shift in her area. It happens. No big deal. At first, she didn't think anything of it. He was just a regular delivery guy, a little quiet, barely said anything when he delivers the food. But something about him felt off. She couldn't tell at that time, but she was getting this weird vibe. It started small. One night, he lingered a little too long after dropping off her food. Normally, delivery guys just hand it over and leave, right? But this time, he just stood there for a second, looking at her. She gave him the usual thanks man and stepped back to close the door, but he hesitated, like he wanted to say something. Then, just as she was about to ask if something was wrong, he gave her this little nod and walked away. She figured maybe he was just tired or spaced out. But then it happened again, and again. Every time she ordered, it was him, and every time he lingered just a little bit longer. At first she told herself she was overthinking it. Maybe he was just awkward, maybe he didn't speak much English and wasn't sure what to say. She didn't want to be that guy who jumps to conclusions, you know? But then things got strange. One night she didn't order anything at all. She had leftovers in the fridge, so she just stayed in, watched TV, relaxed. Around 10 p.m. there was a knock at her door. Not the buzzer for the building, her actual door. Nobody ever came to her door unannounced. She wasn't expecting a package, and she hadn't ordered food. Her first thought was maybe a neighbor needed something, but when she checked the peephole, there he was, Zaid, just standing there. No food in his hands, no delivery bag, just him standing outside her door. She didn't open it. She just stood there, watching through the peephole, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. He didn't knock again. He just stood there for a few seconds, and then walked away. At that point, she knew something was seriously wrong. The next day, she tried to brush it off. Maybe he got the wrong apartment, but she knew that wasn't true. Her gut was telling me something else was going on. So she stopped ordering from Just Eat altogether, just to see what would happen. And guess what? A few nights later, she saw him again. She was coming home from work, and as she was walking up to her building, she noticed someone standing near the entrance. Hoodie up, hands in his pockets, and it was him. She didn't want to believe it, but it was pretty damn obvious at this point. He wasn't just delivering food, he was following her. She kept walking, pretending she didn't see him. She took the long way around to a different entrance just to avoid passing him. When she got inside, she ran up to her apartment, locked the door, and she sat there in silence. For the next week, she changed up her routine, took different routes home, keeping an eye out every time she stepped outside. And sure enough, every couple of days, she'd spot him. Across the street, near the corner, not doing anything, just watching. She didn't want to go straight to the police just yet. It wasn't enough. But then one night, he crossed the line. It was past midnight. She was in bed, half asleep, when she heard something. A soft tap on her window. Her apartment was on the ground floor. Another tap. She grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight and shined it at the window. And there he was, standing outside, staring right at her. She immediately called the police. The whole time, he just stood there, like he wasn't even afraid of being caught. By the time the cops arrived, he was gone. But that was it. She was done. She filed a report, changed her delivery settings to never use Just Eat again, and even ended up moving a couple of months later just to feel safe. She never saw him again after that night. Thank you for listening.